The other thing, though, that's worth pointing out is that that one of the corrupt influences on the union is intelligence, is the CIA. If you look up Solidarity House, Solidarity Center, this is that starting in the 1950s, the labor unions in the United States became involved with fighting against communism around the world. And the American government was like subsidizing them as a way to get labor union activists around the world to oppose communism. And it's illegal. Also, there was a law passed in 1951, I believe, that no communist can have any elected position in a union. It's called the McCarran Act, the Taft-McCarran Act. So technically it's illegal for any communist to be a leader of a labor union. That's not generally enforced. But I think when you join a union, you usually have to sign that you're not a member of the Communist Party. That's required, but that doesn't mean anything anymore because the Communist Party is just one of many little tiny groups. And, but the labor unions, they go around the world kind of working with labor unions that are aligned with the U.S. government. Like in China, you'll often hear about, these labor unions. The New York Times will do stories about, workers somewhere are on strike. Well, those are CIA unions that are run by I think it's called the Free Trade Union Association or the International Federation of Free Trade Unions. It's like a CIA run labor federation, but they often hire people from the United Auto Workers or the AFL-CIO to run it. And so the labor unions get kind of a subsidy from American intelligence to run Solidarity Center and to run these kind of nonprofits around the world that fight for workers' rights, but are mainly focused on opposing communists around the world. And so that's been a corrupting influence on them as well. And there's a lot written about that, about the role of how labor unions. It's almost like they've started, the labor union bureaucrats have started to play more of a role internationally than domestically. Like they help the American government go around the world and advocate for workers' rights with their NGOs and human rights organizations. So,
okay, I hope they don't have too much influence in China.
Yeah. Right. And that every worker in China is a member of a union, but the U.S. government doesn't consider those to be real unions. And it does promote these other unions that are just efforts to destabilize China. And the New York Times likes to play that up and say, look, the Chinese government says it's communist, but it doesn't support workers. Well, these fake unions don't represent the workers. And there have been labor struggles in China. Like, there was a big strike at Honda a few years back, but it was led by the official government union. It was workers in that union. Now, there were disagreements, I guess, but labor struggles in China, which are breaking out, tend to be led by the official unions, not by the CIA, free labor unions. So
you see that, just to hear you saying that, if I were the Chinese government, I would immediately be very suspicious of all these so-called labor union people coming from the United States, trying to help the Chinese labor. So it's like, you see, that's another reason there's so much control within China, right? That people are complaining, okay, the Chinese government is everywhere. Well, Chinese people has to be everywhere. Because everywhere, the CIA and the foreign interferences, they always looking at opportunities to go in, and they will always use very good excuses. The labor condition is so bad. And then you can see that the mainstream media is working with the U.S. government will, amplify. Maybe there's one problem in one manufacturers, and then they will say, look, the horrendous conditions and this and that. Everywhere, China has 1.4 billion people. There's a lot of manufacturers. And if there are some greedy capitalists doing some awful things for the worker, it's very common. All right, it happens. But it doesn't mean the government, turn a blind eye to it. There are channels you can go to complain, etc. And then, of course, there are also media. They do expose these things. From time to time, you see that. The people who delay the payment, or trying to skip the payment and stuff like that, they got exposed. They do. So if I were the Chinese government, I would say, stay where you are. You don't need to come to my country. We can deal with this ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.